Okay, card scraper. How to use one. Here's a card scraper. Here's some wanky wood. So first thing you need to do with a card scraper is sharpen it. So to sharpen a card scraper, you have to flatten the top and take off any burr on the sides. So we flatten the top. This jig just holds the file and gives you a guide at 90 degrees exactly. So we flatten it until it's evenly shiny. Do the other side. Now we need to remove the burr that's created on the edges by the filing. Okay, 4 burrs removed. Now we're ready to turn the burr over the edge. So I'm using the Veritas guide. It's pretty easy to use. This screw loosens the wheel, then you adjust the angle that you want on the burr with the teeny little indicator there. I'm going to go for 15 degrees. Thing to remember about this is it sharpens, or it burrs, rolls the edge over on the side towards the brass indicator. So you just drop your card in and give it a couple passes. You don't have to press very hard, just firm. 3 or 4 passes is enough. Then flip the card. Three or 4 passes. Flip the card over. Flip the card end to end. Okay, now I sharpen that card scraper. It now has a burr that you can feel on every corner. So once you take the file and round off or flatten the top and remove the burrs, you wind up with the edge of your card scraper that looks like that. Nice sharp corners, nice flat top. Then you take and roll the burr. What that does is that will leave these sides straight. But up here at the top, where you push down on it, it's going to mush these inner corners. And it's going to take this top and create a curve like that on both sides. So that's what you wind up with. If you set your burnish angle to 15 degrees, then that is this angle here. 15 degrees. So that's what you're aiming for, and it's this little bit of the burr here that is your scraping edge. Okay, there are a whole raft of ways to use a card scraper. How a card scraper works is you now have this surface is no longer flat. It's now curved like that, with the angle here set at the angle that I set there, 15 degrees. So if I were to put this card scraper on here at 90 degrees, it wouldn't do anything because it's just rolling on that burnished curve. Even if I tip it over, I have to go past 15 degrees. So I'm rolling that edge of the card scraper down until my burr is catching in the wood. So if I roll this over to more than 15 degrees off vertical and push the card scraper ahead, you'll see that that burr is now catching and removing the thinnest of shavings because I'm not putting any pressure on it. This is just the weight of the card, right? And it does that much. And you can see that this surface has a hollow here and a hollow here and a little hollow here. So it's only pushing the high spots. So if I continue to do that with no pressure, eventually we're going to get to the point where that dust shavings, see, it's getting more and more, wider and wider. The dust shavings and the little hollows are getting less and less. This hollow is completely gone. And we can keep that going until, and I'm not putting any pressure on the card. I'm just holding it steady and the light is down. Now you see, I've got this thing taking dust-like shavings across the whole width. So that's one way to use a card scraper. And that's completely valid, even though most people won't tell you how to use it like that. So, next way is putting curve in the card scraper. What the curve does is it reduces the area that's in contact with the wood, right? Because it creates a curve. So you can see there's a distinct curve there. And only that top point of the curve is going to come in contact with the wood. The more we bend the card, the smaller the contact point. The reason for doing that is, first off, it allows us to put more force on a single point on the card. If I take the card and leave it unbent and put force on it, it's hard to move. And I'm still only getting dust-like shavings. If I take the card and give it a good curve and put force on it, you can see I get long, wispy shavings where the card is in contact with the board. If I put a big curve on it and don't put much pressure on, I'm still getting some shaving. It's not as thick. It's wispier, but it's still a shavings. And as it moves out from the center, those shavings turn into just dust, because the lightest thing that you can remove from the wood is just that little bit, the teeniest bit on the surface. So that's two primary ways to use a card scraper. They have two different purposes, many different purposes. The purpose of curving the card scraper and getting an aggressive shaving is if you need to remove material. Like I have these pencil marks here. And now I could take an eraser and erase those pencil marks. First off, that isn't going to 100% erase the pencil marks. It's just going to take the stuff off the surface. And that pencil has dinted the wood and left a little groove there. So even if I do get all that out, that pencil mark is still going to be there. So I can use the card scraper in focused by bending it and then going over that pencil mark bit by bit to remove just that pencil mark. So you see how good the shavings are? I'm pressing hard, I'm getting good, firm, wispy shavings, and that pencil mark is erased. But if I take the card and just run it over lightly, I've created a slight hollow and a slight rise where I did that. It's very slight, and that can be removed by using the card scraper flat without putting much pressure on it and without any curve. Just taking dust-like shavings, but I'm flattening this surface across the whole surface. The other thing that you can use the curved for is anywhere that you need to focus on removing the teeniest bit of material. So for example, right here we have a little teeny knot that comes up, and it creates a little teeny patch of backwards grain. So I can use the card scraper either in focus mode to work on just that little bit of backwards grain there, which is all gone now, or I can use it in unfocused mode and do this whole area. If I put pressure on, I can get a bit more even. So now you can see that contrary grain is completely gone. Card scrapers can be used to deal with funky end grain. Here we've got a bunch of, I don't know, I guess internal rot or something to this wood. It's got one kind of wood here and another bit of bark inclusion in here, and then the wood has grown over it, so some form of injury to the wood. And it goes all the way back to here. You can use a card scraper to clean that up a bit. If this was an important feature of your board, but you didn't want it snagging on people's clothes or something like that, then you can use a card scraper to really get in there. And I'm just putting a little bit of curve on the card scraper, not a lot, just a little bit, because I'm trying to focus on taking out any bits of that that are going to snag on anything.